The Three Little Birds podcast by Amy.
Well, hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Three Little Birds podcast. I'm Amy. It's so great to have you here, and I'm still recording from my garden, so hopefully you can't hear too much background noise like planes and trains and automobiles. I am doing a little follow-up episode on the yoga and sound weekend retreat I hosted because I'm sure there are a few practitioners on here, and I thought it might be helpful just to share a little bit about how we pulled it all together. So maybe if you're not interested in logistics, this isn't the episode for you. As I mentioned in the last episode, planning is so important. Preparing in advance made everything so easy for us on the day, on the weekend, and also being really clear about what was included and what wasn't included with the venue, what services they offered and what services they didn't offer, what facilities they had, what equipment they allowed us to use, and so on and so forth. So being really clear about, first of all, what you need, what you want, and then what is provided with whatever venue you decide on. And on the venue note, we chose a venue that Veronica had been to before. So she had experienced it before. She was really impressed. And I went to see it on my own, just to have a walk around. And it was really lovely, really sort of simple, clean, fresh, really kind staff, really attentive, like they left us to our own devices over the weekend, but they were super helpful in case, if we needed anything, there was always somebody there to help us out. I'm really interested in constructive feedback after the retreat, which I thought was great because I'm that kind of person too, where I always want to improve things. So they're, not sort of happy with the status quo. They always want to improve, which I really admired. So choosing the right venue, I'd say, is a really big one. And really think about it. We explored quite a few venues. So I'd been to a couple that I inquired about, and Veronica had been to this one, and we looked at a few others. So obviously you need to consider your pricing, how much it costs for somebody to stay there, whether they have ensuite rooms, whether people need to share a room, or they offer single occupancy, whether food is included, whether snacks and drinks are included, whether they cater for dietary requirements. All of those sorts of things are really helpful. Do they have hair dryers in the room? Do they have toiletries? The one we went to they were so sweet. Like they had a personalized welcome basket in the room, every room for everybody. All the rooms were single occupancy, all of the rooms were en suite, all of the food was included, and afternoon tea. And I've told you I'm sorely missing the afternoon tea and cake today because it was amazing, all homemade, all fresh. So really think about that. That was really important to us, to have that sort of quality experience. And it depends what kind of retreat you're trying to offer, right? We wanted something where people could turn up and not have to think about anything. So the beds were made, the toiletries were there in case people forgot anything. There was hair dryers in the rooms. They had the little welcome basket. They had an ensuite room, so they didn't have to worry about sharing. It was single occupancy. All of that ticked all of our boxes. All of the rooms had lovely views of nature, which was really amazing for the type of retreat we wanted to offer. They had fixed times for meals, and that meant that they were catered, right? So they included all the food, and they talked to us about meal times and quiet times. There was quiet times as well at the house. We got the terms and conditions in advance and all the information, and they were happy to support us. You might want to see if they would support you with marketing. So they might have their own website where they could advertise your retreat, or they might have their own social media where they might share your posts, for example, to help you sell tickets, because at the end of the day, it is in their interest for you to sell tickets, right? Because then they get the income. So all of that stuff, it's really important to be clear about beforehand what is and isn't included in the stay, and the cost per head of staying at the venue, because then obviously, you're dedicating your time. And remember that your time is not just you turning up at the weekend and hosting a group of people, whether it be yoga or sound or, you know, music or something else. It's also all the preparation that goes into it. And there's a lot of preparation that goes into it if you do it well. And so we started planning in January. That's when Veronica came to me with the idea for a full weekend retreat. Then we spent time exploring venues, looking at costing. We wanted it to be as reasonable as possible, but obviously we still needed to have some sort of return on investment. Otherwise, it's a hobby, not a business. So there was a modest income for us from that weekend retreat. And remember, it was our first one. So we're learning as we go and improving and making tweaks as we go into our next weekend retreat. So we took all of that into consideration with the pricing. We spent time investigating venues, thinking about costs, calculating how many activities and events we wanted to include on the schedule, and trying to balance that with enough free time that people felt that they weren't overscheduled or that we weren't demanding too much of their time. Because really, for that kind of retreat, people do want some downtime in between to maybe journal and ground or sleep, even if they have a really busy life outside of the weekend retreat. So we were very careful and thoughtful about how we planned the program, and we pulled it together, then we tweaked it, and then, we did our own sort of plans. So Veronica did her yoga lesson plans, and I did the sort of sound bath themes that, we wanted to focus on to tie it into the whole theme for the weekend. And that actually went really well. So it was really worth spending that additional time in advance, thinking about and setting intentions about what we wanted to achieve from the weekend, how we wanted people to feel when they left. And essentially that was relaxed, aligned, calm, rested, freer, lighter, clearer minded, and more robust in their energy, so that they could go back into whatever sort of life they have outside of the retreat and feel like they are almost protected in a way, right? Because they've spent some time investing in and managing their energy in a calm, quiet, safe space, so that they feel like they can regulate their emotions and feel more steady and balanced as they go about their daily lives. So that was our intention, and I feel like we really achieved that, honestly. We're really happy with how it went. The feedback's been amazing. So I'd encourage you to spend time finding the right venue and also the right co-host. I mean, you don't have to have a co-host when you host a retreat. Plenty of people do it solo, but I really liked the balance that brought. You sort of, yes, you divide the profit, but you also divide the responsibility. And we each brought something slightly different to the table. So it was a really nice balance, I feel, sharing the hosting. And it meant that one of us was available. If people needed us, we let them know where to find us, and we were available if somebody wanted to connect or chat or talk about the program or the venue or anything like that. So it went really well. So think about whether you feel confident and comfortable, and you might, holding space for people for a whole weekend. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it on your own, try and find somebody that would complement your skills, who you could co-host with. And Veronica and I have known each other for, like 13 years. Is that right? Our kids went to primary school together. My word, I think we've known each other for 13 years. I don't feel that old, but apparently we are. And we really only started collaborating. She's been a yoga teacher for many years. And I started my business a few years ago, as you'll know if you listen to one of my previous podcasts. But we really only started collaborating together on morning retreats a couple of years ago. So we started off small. I went to her with the idea that, I thought sound baths and yoga would complement each other really nicely. I knew she was a great teacher because I'd been to her classes in the past, and she's, really a really good guide when it comes to yoga. I love yoga. I do yoga every day. And so I really respected her as a yoga teacher and as a friend. And I knew she was a good person, So we already got along well, and we've shared many moments together, over the years. We've got kids the same age, and our families are friends. So it was a really easy thing for me, and hopefully for her. If you're listening, Veronica, I hope you enjoy working with me too. I mean, she said she did, and I feel like she'd probably tell me the truth. I hope she would. But it was a really obvious choice for me. Like, it wasn't a difficult decision to say, yes, I want to work with you. We're both trustworthy, we're both loyal, we're both, aiming at the same sort of goal. When it comes to our retreats, we want people to go away feeling a certain way. We want to offer the best we can offer. So doing the morning retreats first was really great. And I think we thought we'd done 2, but I've just checked back and I think we've done 3 morning retreats together before we went into doing weekend retreats. So that was a really nice sort of practice run, I guess you could say. And we're continuing to do the morning retreats because they're so good. It's a really lovely opportunity to just sort of detach and rest, just for a morning. It's a really nice thing to offer people. So we're still doing those, but doing the weekend retreat was just like another step. If you're co-hosting, think about who you're going to co-host with. How well do you know them? Can you trust them? Are they reliable? Do they do things when they say they're going to do them? Do they keep their side of the deal? I knew Veronica did, and she knew I did, and we each had our own roles in planning the retreat. So Veronica was the one who liaised with the venue. I pulled together, because I have a mailing list and the capability to do emails, email marketing, I guess you'd call it. I was the one that handled the sort of admin side like that. I pulled together the emails and sent them out from my email address. Obviously, she was copied on everything and proofread everything before I sent it, but that's sort of how we divided up the responsibilities, and it worked really well for us. So I would say definitely decide how you're going to split your responsibilities and stick to your side of the bargain. Maintain good communication. It's really important. If you say you're going to do something by a deadline, make sure you do it and agree the important stuff together. Bring your ideas to the table. I had so many ideas that Veronica had to sort of calm me down. But things like, I'm a coach, so I wanted to encourage people to take some time to journal and offer some journal prompts. So I brought some journals and pens and journal prompts for people. And Veronica was just amazing at bringing new and different meditations and yoga sessions to the group. So it was a really nice balance. We each did our part, and I think it went really well. We each had our own responsibilities, and obviously the bits I did meant that she didn't have to do them, the bits she did meant that I didn't have to do them. So it's really nice to be able to split the responsibility like that and not have to think about everything yourself. So I really appreciated that about it. And we had regular sort of catch-ups before the retreat, in person and by phone, so just double checking logistics, checking timings, tweaking the program. We tweaked the program a few times just to make sure it felt right and that the sort of themes of each session aligned with our end goal. That was really important. We had regular communication with the venue, just to make sure that they had received everything they needed from us. So if you're hosting a retreat, the venue, especially if they're catering, will want to know how you want to allocate rooms. They will want to know if there are any dietary requirements that they need to cater for, any special access needs, if anyone has a physical disability that needs to be taken into consideration, if there are ground floor rooms or if there's a lift or something like that, to consider that when you're allocating the rooms. We didn't want to send too many emails about the retreat, but I feel like everybody was well enough informed before they arrived. So obviously we shared a little bit about our intention as we marketed the retreat. So this is our intention. It's going to be yoga and sound. There'll be 8 or so hours of activities which are scheduled. It will be in this amazing venue. If you're interested, let us know. Many people let us know they were interested, and then I created a group from those people, and we let them know first about the retreat, and actually just those people sold all the spots. So, it pays to speak to the people that are genuinely interested rather than to everybody, right? When people expressed an interest, they got the booking information first, and we asked for 50% of the deposit up front because we had to pay the venue to hold the rooms for that weekend. So that was really important that we received the deposits in advance so that we could then pay the venue on time, because obviously it's our reputation as well. So we want to make sure that we're holding up our end of the agreement with the venue. So everybody was amazing, paid their deposits, and because the deposit was non-refundable with the venue, it was non-refundable with us too. And then we had a second payment. So we essentially split it into two. So there was the deposit, which was non-refundable, and then the final deposit, which meant that we could then send the full amount to the venue in advance. And we left just enough time to fill any spaces if anybody happened to drop out or anything. We wanted to make sure that we had time to share that there was 1 or 2 spaces opened up if that was the case, which it wasn't. Everybody was committed and they wanted to attend. But just think about that, because you're responsible, so if you are hosting a retreat, think in advance about how you would handle anyone who could no longer attend or had some sort of conflict come up at the last minute. Our plan was to offer any spaces that came available to somebody else so that we could hopefully then refund the person that could no longer make it. But we didn't guarantee refunds because obviously we couldn't guarantee that someone would take the space. As it stood, nobody cancelled, so it was absolutely fine, but that is something to consider. So that's the sort of the financial side of it. Again, I would say the more you can plan in advance and think about the potential outcomes. So we sent an email to let everybody know we were planning a retreat and to gauge their interest. After we got their interest, we then sent them some more specific information to say, this is what you can expect, and here are the booking details. After we had sold all the spots, then we sent another email to say thank you so much for booking. If you could pay the remaining amount by X date, which I think was a month or 2 later, we'd appreciate it because we need to pay the venue. I sent a reminder to let everybody know that that date was coming up for the final amount. Everybody paid in advance of the date, which was amazing. So also think about a buffer, between the time that you've asked everybody to pay the final amount by and the date you need to pay the venue by, just so you have time to chase people if necessary. It wasn't necessary for us, but just something else to factor in. Then we sent another email to thank everybody. If you need health declaration forms from anyone, send those out just to give people time to respond before the actual retreat. Fairly far in advance, I think it was probably 2 months in advance, we sent information about timings because the venue was very clear on the timings that they wanted us to adhere to. So, for example, checking in. So, just giving people information about location, how to get there, what time we were inviting them to check in, what time the venue asked us to check out by, just so that they could plan their logistics, childcare or doggy daycare or taxiing people around, whatever it was that they usually have to do over a weekend, then they could plan in advance and ensure that they were calm and prepared so that they could completely switch off when they came on the retreat. We sent a reminder about the logistics closer to the time, and then we sent another reminder and included the full program of events. We didn't send that too far in advance because we were still tweaking it, but we also didn't want to sort of burden people with too much information. So we sent that maybe a week or 2 before. We sent them an email, again, reminding of logistics, what's included in the room, a little packing list, reminding people to remember their toothbrush and toothpaste and toiletries and PJs and all that stuff. So I think that was quite helpful. So we sent that reminder a week before, and then I sent a final reminder the day before, just a final reminder of logistics and timings and things like that, and to ask people that might have been turning up later just to give me a ring and let me know. Make sure people have a way of contacting you on the day in case anything comes up. That's really helpful. We got to the venue super early, so we had a few hours to calmly check everything. As I said in the previous podcast, we checked all the rooms, made sure they were all great, and they were perfect. Made sure everybody had a fan because it was a heat wave happening at the time. We laid out all the equipment, we unloaded all the sound bath stuff, went over the program again, went over what we wanted to say in our introduction, double checked the timings and thought about all the different people and their individual needs. And that was really helpful just to have that time to sort of check ourselves in before everybody else arrived. So I would advise, if you can, to arrive early and just go through everything calmly. Make sure you talk to the venue staff, the management, introduce yourself, and just double check if they need you to say anything to your attendees, or if they're going to say it, like fire alarms and things like that. So we went through the fire safety drill with the manager just to make sure that we knew what to do if anything happened while staff were not on site. And it was perfect. So we had loads of time, and people arrived, in dribs and drabs, which meant we could divide and conquer. So we would take people to their rooms, show them around, explain the facilities, explain where to find us, what happened at what time. And then we had a sort of intro meeting over tea and cake that afternoon after everyone had arrived, and just talk them through what to expect, the sort of energy and the intention we had behind the weekend, and to share a printed program. So I'd sent the program to everybody via email, and we gave them a printed program, and we had spare printed programs lying around the house, lying around the venue, so that everybody knew what was happening. They didn't need to remember it because we mostly remembered it, or we had a copy of the program so we could remind people, if they wanted to participate, which was not obligatory, then they needed to be, in this place at this time. And it really worked well. We asked people for feedback by email, which we are slowly gathering in, and we're going to get together and read that feedback and action it as best we can. So if there are, initially it doesn't seem like there are any this could be improved sort of emails, but as and when we get them, we're going to incorporate that into future retreats, because we really want to make it an amazing experience for everybody. So something else I would say is, if you're hosting the retreat yourself, make sure there is some downtime, or that you are sharing responsibilities with somebody and you take it in turns to have some downtime, because, while, gosh, our retreat was amazing, the group were fantastic, really lovely, really supportive, really enthusiastic, really willing to engage and be open and vulnerable, and really brought great energy. You're still holding space for, a number of people, depending on how many, obviously you decide how many people you are able or willing to host. I feel like we pitched it perfectly. In total, there were 11 of us on the retreat, including Veronica and I. So I feel like that was the perfect number, because it was small enough that everybody got to know each other, and big enough that people could break off into smaller groups if they wanted to, or go off on their own. And that was great, because it meant that Veronica and I could have our own downtime in between sessions and take it in turns, to be available for people if they needed us. So I hope that's been really helpful if you are thinking about running your own retreat. And if you're listening and you think you'd like to join one of our retreats in the future, why don't you join my email community? You can join via my website. It's threelittlebirdsofficial.com. I hope you found that helpful. I hope you have a wonderful week. Much love. Bye.